And welcome back to AATV Live with your host, me, Tom Anvil Hibbard, coming from my front room, so there may be distractions. This is the height of the Corona COVID crisis. I've got 3 dogs and 2 teenagers in the house, so God knows what could happen. I've got another one of our special guests today. I've got my long-term friend and teammate, Ben Webb, joining me from his home office. Hi, Ben. How you doing?
Hey, Tom. How's it going, mate?
I'm good. You are live on the internet. Please swear.
Oh, excellent.
So what you?
Bugger. I'll ramp up the swearing as we go.
Exactly. I mean, I think we've got Jez joining us and Mark Courier in the comments already. Jez wants to see your boobs, apparently, Ben.
Not for you, Jez. Not for you.
So I have I've got a Brewdog Punk IPA. That's all I could find in the local co-op. What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking Tesco's Basic Bitch craft beer. Actually, it's not that bad.
It's actually pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's 7.2%, so it's got a bit of a kick to it, and it looks like wee, which is a good, bad wee actually.
Yeah, if you got most good craft beer, it looks like you've got some sort of yeast infection.
It's not as good as that Wylam stuff we used to.
Unfortunately, I bought loads of that, and then they closed the pub.
Yeah,
so
it'll keep.
So Ben, for those who don't know you, do you want to do a brief introduction, and then I'll do the same for myself as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll keep it very brief because it feels like I've spent a lifetime explaining what I have done. But got into Airsoft probably 12 years ago now, I would have thought, thanks to a good dude called John that I worked with at the time, and some mates, Jamie and Dan, that really helped push me into it. Pulled me out of Games Workshop and went dragging me around a wood at Free Fire Zone, which was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And not long after that, because of people I met through work, I was working for a company that was called EMAP at the time. Ended up writing Airsoft International magazine, which is seems like a lifetime ago now. Spent a good few years doing that, and then moved over to ASG, the company I now work for. So I've gone from just an airsoft player, dabbling a little bit in marshalling here and there, all the way through to selling airsoft guns to retailers now, and then dealing with all the fun stuff that entails. And along the way, I've tried to enjoy playing a bit of airsoft at certain times as well. But, that's what comes with the territory.
It does. Okay, so my background, obviously, at the moment I'm running this YouTube channel and doing live streams to keep us all slightly sane. My background, I started around, I can never remember if it's 2000, 2001, but I started playing Airsoft. So we're getting on for 19, 20 years. I started at Phoenix in Mansfield, ironically, through Games Workshop Sports and Social Club, and also through a mutual friend of ours, Gareth Gadge Harvey, who appears on the YouTube channel as well. So he started, along with some other guys at Games Workshop, he started the kind of Games Workshop team, Lenton First and Only, loosely based on some characters from one of the books. Played for about 6-7 years, and then drifted off to go skydiving and doing triathlon and swimming and other such mad fitness stuff. And then came back again in about 2012. Started playing again. Left Games Workshop. Gadge said you can write something. Started writing for Airsoft Action magazine. And then that was that really. And then just recently we've split the YouTube channel off from the magazine, largely because what I get out of Airsoft isn't necessarily what the magazine is targeted at. So there was no hard feelings, but very much I have a very personal view of Airsoft that doesn't necessarily match with some of the wider views in the media.
It's been a bit of a wild ride, hasn't it?
It has really. I certainly didn't really expect to be sitting here doing live streams about Airsoft on the YouTubes. That really was not. It really was not in the game plan, but I'm sort of really enjoying it. We basically had this idea for. And for those of you watching, this one's going to be a bit waffly because me and Ben go back a long way. We're going to have a nice chat. We haven't really spoken to each other for a while, so we're going to have a nice chat anyway.
I think this is as much for our sanity as it is for everybody else's.
Yes, Mark. That was so. Mark in Thin Brown Line in the comments has said, "Is that a reference to Tanner First and Only?" Yes, absolutely, Mark. And actually, we contacted Dan Abnett when we started the team to ask permission to use Lenton First and Only, and he said absolutely, and he gave us a little bit of prose about the men of Lenton, do you want to live forever, which was really cool. It was just like, yay!
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So, apparently, all of the well, I say apparently, I know pretty well that a lot of the guys that work for Games Workshop, especially in Forge World, are really into airsoft at the moment as well. Mark Bedford as well is really into a very specialist sort of division of airsoft, which is pretty cool. I think they went and played in the first ever game of Star Wars airsoft that had been.
Oh wow! Okay.
So it was like one beyond Milsim. They're actually all dressed up in Star Wars outfits, running around shooting at each other.
Yeah, the Forge World guys were very quick to get into World War II airsoft when it kicked off in the UK. So as soon as that became a scene, sort of mid 2000s, 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
Basically, when there were other guns other than a Thompson. The first World War II game I went to, it was like 20 US guys with Thompsons versus 20 German guys with Thompsons.
These are captured.
It was all captured Thompsons. It was.
I guess it goes hand in hand, though, doesn't it? You know, if you're into modelling, and I don't mean like Instagram modelling, I mean scale modelling, the nerdy version of modelling. The historical side of airsoft really kind of just meshes with it. It's the same thing. A lot of people have said, what do you get out of airsoft most? And I kind of like both extremes of airsoft. I like the running around and being active and you know, doing that kind of boisterous activity, but I also quite like the building models thing, and we've spoken about it plenty of times before. I think we've spoken about it on the channel before, but building one scale models of kit and guns in particular is like it's pretty much the same thing for me. That's one of the big appeals, you know, matching up a paint job, matching up the right components, getting the right replica parts. Whether or not the gun even works is not necessarily that important. You know, it's almost secondary to if you've built the model of the right thing down to the smallest detail.
Yeah, so you were quite well known for that at your time in AI, producing a lot of really quite iconic firearms from movies and from conflicts and from stuff like that. And so that's certainly something that gets your juices flowing then, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, with the magazine, it was a necessity. We had to kind of do something every month to fill the pages. And you can't just talk about the same old thing. So you do kind of have to pick a project and then run with it and everything that project entails, you know. So you start off building the gun maybe, or, you know, more often you pick up a decent set of BDUs or a uniform or just even one item. You know, I've got a particular backpack that I've managed to find a really good deal on.
Yeah.
And it becomes completely irrelevant that you got a good deal on it in the first place. You pick up that one item and then you've got to build the whole outfit around it. You've got to build the whole loadout around it. So, you know, it could be, I don't know, maybe something we'll look into, the smallest piece of equipment that you picked up that inspired an entire loadout.
Yeah.
You know, so I've got exactly the right sling point for my gun to do this power jumper loadout or something. So I got a great deal on this one tiny sling point, and now I'm going to spend $2,500 on everything else.
Yeah, because one thing you were also, and it's actually, I've only just started dabbling in impression kit recently, which is largely Gaz's fault, our mate Gaz from Red Wolf UK. Because I always saw it as a massive money pit, which it is. You know, although you can be a bit more sensible these days because repro gear's got an awful lot better than it was. But you were known back in the day as well for doing some quite high level impression gear, which must have been, which is, you know, very inspirational, but must be quite difficult.
Yeah, it was quite expensive as well. That's, you know, no beating around the bush.
Yep.
We'd got some great deals because there was a hand-in-hand promotion going on in the magazine. So yeah, I got hooked up with quite a lot of stuff that maybe other people would have been very lucky to get hold of, or that would have been incredibly expensive.
How you doing, Gaz?
So yeah, got a few nice little touches on things. But yeah, trying to take things one at a time, or trying to build all these whole loadouts and then trying to do a new one every month. It actually takes more than a month of solid kind of bookwork and research to really properly understand the loadout, and to understand, you know, what it is that you're doing. So to do one every month was really, really tough.
It must have been really tough. I mean, I know, obviously, Gadge is just around the corner from me. Gadge, who was the assistant editor on Airsoft Action magazine and now also works for ASG. He was he did his Cold War Warrior series for a long time, but most of that stuff, I mean, he never broke even on any of those articles.
Oh no. No. Funnily enough, you don't actually get paid that much writing magazines. There's no animosity between me and my former boss, but he did look after us very well. And we took the perks where we could take the perks, but it's not like a big baller job. You're not kind of rocking up and getting a Land Rover and stuff like that. You do it for the love of it.
I think people underestimate sometimes actually quite how small an industry airsoft actually is. Yeah. Like my background, obviously, I was a designer at Games Workshop for 16 years, and Games Workshop is a medium-sized company, but is a £600 gorilla in the war games world. And then compared to most airsoft companies, it's massive. And it's been quite interesting coming into this industry. And there are some big players, but even the big players are still realistically not that big.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's I think it was Billy Gumbrell, a name and many people will recognise, said one day the best way to become a millionaire in airsoft is to start with 2 million.
So it's the same in the cycling world. It was the best way of losing money in the cycling world was open a bike shop.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you can go to work in the mornings, and if you're lucky enough to work in the industry, you can go to work, and no matter what happens, you can I still enjoy working in, I'm not dealing with washing machine parts, or I'm not just dealing with some sort of completely abstract concept. I'm actually doing stuff that's based on something I enjoy. But yeah, back to the loadouts and things like that. It was, I think the only really good loadouts I think I ever did, the really good ones, were the SEALs ones, because I spent a lot of time sort of passionate about that, and I know they definitely got their money's worth out of those speeches. But a lot of people liked picking them up. A lot of people give a magazine stick because it's always just M4s, it's always just multicam or AOR1. But to be honest, when you look at the statistics of how well those magazines sold or didn't sell, although people were vocal about it, the ones with multicam and the ones with AOR1 and the ones with an M4 actually sold better.
It's a bit like asking Games Workshop not to do Space Marines.
Yeah, exactly the same sort of thing. It's just, to the mass market, that's what you want, and unfortunately, you kind of just got to grind over the same old basics. I mean, the amount of times that we rebuilt a feature on cleaning your barrel or adjusting your hop, or not buying shit BBs and just using quality BBs. The amount of times we had to go over that subject again and again and again and again, and it gets kind of tiresome. But this is the cool thing about moving onto the YouTube channel, and it's a great thing that you've kind of now been able to just go off on your own and do what you want, is because you don't have to keep going over those same subjects. You can have that YouTube video in the channel, you can refer back to it, but you don't have to make it every 2 months, every 3 months.
Yeah, I'm getting back to the point where I want to redo some of the older stuff, largely as production quality's gone up, but also because I now know more. So when we did our initial BB accuracy stuff and range stuff, actually we were just fumbling in the dark a bit. We didn't really know. We kind of went, the first time we went to the jail and did a BB range test, and we were like, well, we reckon it's going to be about 50 metres, but we really were just like sticking our thumbs up our arse and just having a guess. And then actually it was about right, and we were like, actually, okay, fair enough.
I guess that's the benefit of having probably like 50 years of experience between us doing the whole airsoft thing.
I think I want to touch on a point that you made about having to go over articles again and again and again, because I think we're both old timers, right? And obviously we know people that have been playing longer than us, but fundamentally we've been playing, as you say, between us 30, 35 years. It's a lot of experience and a lot of time. But for most airsofters, probably don't have that lifespan in the hobby. So part of it is seeing this. You have to retread over that stuff again and again and again, because your average, your churn and burn, probably, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years, if that, from your average airsofter.
I guess we're really hitting the titular subject here, aren't we? It's how it's more than just shooting at each other, and for a lot of people, grab your ARP9, whack a load of BBs in it, go and run around in a warehouse with a load of plyboard obstacles, mowing each other down. How long is that going to stay interesting for? Especially if you don't travel around. If you just turn up at that site once, twice a week, even the most patient person has probably got 3 years in them until it's kind of like I'll move on to something else. I've discovered cars, I've discovered golf, I've discovered cycling, and they all kind of just take away a bit of time from you, and they all just borrow time, and so people get bored with it. People move on, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. People like to enjoy hobbies, and dread to think how many surfboards and fucking sets of skis and golf clubs there are laying dormant in people's garages. People do that. That's how hobbies work. You can tap in and tap out. But the cool thing about airsoft, I think, is the varied. Like I was saying earlier on, it's not just running around in the woods shooting each other. And if you get tired of doing that, or it's not the nicest weather or something, there is another aspect of it. And of course, there's like the social gathering. There's the friends that you make. There's the building the kit, the building the guns, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more going on, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I quite often see. I try to avoid them on Facebook groups because the same question comes up again and again and again. Just as we've been talking about, Watan Bescanu and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people I'm getting a bit bored. I'm getting a bit fed up. What do I do now? And the question is always, I will always ask is, well, what do you do now? And invariably the answer is, I go to my local site twice a month. And my answer was always, well, there's an enormous amount of other activities within airsoft that you can do that isn't just your average weekend skirmish. So what sort of stuff have you been up to over your kind of airsoft career, Ben?
Well, it went from honestly playing twice a week, every week for about 3 years. Midweek games, night games. Some weeks you could even get 3 games in, which was crazy. A lot of people probably do that now with the playing session games and things, but this is back when like a night game was probably a 3-4 hour session one evening, and then you got your full day games on Saturdays and Sundays. So that there was a hardcore skirmishing aspect, and with that came kind of I need to collect and buy decent kit. I don't care who it is that uses it or what brand it's from, as long as it's the good stuff, as long as it works for me. So kind of like the sport inside of airsoft that was, playing for the, not speed soft in a sense, but playing for the sporting aspect of it, trying to shoot as many people as possible, not get shot, playing for objectives, and being that kind of player, to then kind of picking up a bit more impression stuff and then getting into that. Even did a bit of Vietnam stuff, even did a couple of World War II games, but didn't really get a great deal of the kit because I've always been into the sort of modern tactical side of things. I like all the material advances, and that's one of the cool things that I've seen over like my time in airsoft, to being interested in tactical kit, is how much shit has gone from buy a load of old surplus crap that smells like mould. And I've taken the piss out of Gadge so much for it over the last few years. It's like absolutely getting pumped on this old webbing strap belt that smells like it's been in his basement for 20 years.
His attic does smell like an army surplus store. Absolutely. It's I quite like. So I've done very similar kind of trajectory. Really, I helped out first and only Matlock when it first started as well. Bit of a legendary site, and I used to help run that site and marshal up there, which partly why I left airsoft, because you see, as a marshal, it's very difficult. You kind of, when you're on the other side of the gun, you see a lot of stuff.
Running games in the past, and there's like people screaming at each other, like effing and blinding on one end of the site, absolutely going for it about somebody that's the other side of the site that has absolutely no idea that this guy is screaming at them.
Just hilarious.
Hey, he's cheating, he's not taking his hits, and it's like, come here and look where your BBs are landing, because I'm literally watching them land in front of me and they're not going half as far as you think they are. You pick the guy's gun up and you've not actually set the hop on this, mate.
Jez asks, have you ever drunk lots of beer and slept in a shopping mall?
Yes. When you say slept, we didn't actually do any sleeping. That was good old Billy that was mentioned earlier on. We demolished a couple of cases of beer and just stayed in a mall in Reading, the mall in Reading, overnight. And we were supposed to get a pretty early night because we were waking up and doing the whole kind of retail and promotion thing. But instead we just got drunk and didn't sleep at all. I think I laid down for about 25 minutes on a really uncomfortable camp bed, and I was like, this is crap, isn't it? I might as well get up and try and find coffee now.
Yeah, so one of the things I've quite enjoyed is almost not living history, but picking up a riff of some sort and then not necessarily getting the whole uniform and the whole outfit, but getting the appropriate load bearing gear.
Yeah.
So when I got back in, I got some AKs and I got some Russian load bearing gear, and started using it and gaming with it and playing with it. But generally, it's shit. It's
crap gear.
Crap gear. It's just so Gadge, if you're watching, it's just terrible, right? It's just awful.
It's like a masochism thing for Gadge, though. I think he likes it. It's got diggy in buckles and like something that might give you, I don't know, what's it called when you some sort of blood infection from it if it cuts you.
Septicemia, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, and I really enjoy it.
The Sisterhood game we went to at the Kingdom. That was pretty good, wasn't it? And I think that was probably the most lo-fi airsoft game ever.
I shall chuck up a picture. I hope Jodie won't mind. Do you think Jodie mind if I put a picture of us three up? Was that?
Sure, she won't.
Okay.
Sure, she won't. Just the Tuddenham one.
Yeah. This is one of the best games I've ever been to. This was Deltas of Sisterhood at Tuddenham, run by Gunman, which is set in the 1990s. Ben will see it on stream in a minute. Ben, if you've got the stream running.
I've not got a window opened, but okay. I'll pop it up.
But you know the one. It's us three at the meeting with our good friend Ben Manicum when we were being quite rude to him.
Oh, that was good fun. That was.
And so, but this game, this is really, and this is where my airsoft is very much. It's almost like jumping to the end of the story, but this is where my airsoft is now, which is with playing as crew. So this game is pretty unique, really. There's a few other ones. I know some people run training scenarios with crew.
We're busting out some serious Eric Banner level anachronisms there with our glasses, aren't we?
Yes, what is it? I think I've got ESS Edge on, and you've got some Oakleys on, but one of those things. But this game, for everyone that's watching, it's almost like if you make the analogy to computer gaming, where most airsoft games are PvP. This game is PvE, with the crew being the environment. So it's only really one side, and the crew's job is to basically just have a phenomenal game and really make the players enjoy themselves immensely, which is, if you're into that kind of thing, is one of the most enjoyable things as an airsofter.
It was awesome. I was a little bit nervous at one point when Josh kind of threw us in at the deep end on that. Good old Josh. Where's Josh? He's probably not even connected to the internet. I think he's gone feral, actually.
He's in some village, I think, hiding in a bunker at the moment.
But Josh kind of chucked us in the deep end with that one, didn't he? And said, crack on, guys, and get involved. Help me run the game.
Yeah, you can be the commanders. Mostly Harmus asks, how erotic do you find Rhodesian short shorts? On a scale of 1 to erotic, well, I think that's pretty self-evidently. I'll get myself lubed up with butter and go running around the field for a pair of short shorts.
Funny enough, I think that's going to be the next go-to loadout, actually. Our friend James has recently got into the idea of airsoft, and as soon as LCT make that bloody SLR, we're doing it.
That's my SLR face. You probably saw it on the UK stream as well. It's just, please.
Yeah. I just noticed in the comments Dan Cooper's got involved. Dan's one of the guys that I used to play with very, very frequently back in the day. Dan is probably regarded as the loudest man at any airsoft game ever. He's pretty encouraging, I reckon. That's the best way to describe him. He has told people that they're absolute fucking effing blinding C words. Can we say C words? Is that going to get?
I'll probably avoid the C word, but I think we'll go for everything else.
It's been hilarious, especially when Dan was running games and people used to come and moan at him, and he used to tell them to basically sack up and get on with it. bit of a legend. Also, Dan's idea of camo used to be some really, really nice, genuine Cry AOR1 bottoms and a bright red T-shirt.
A super operator.
It was awesome. Dan is probably the most operator person I know.
Okay, so let's go back to the title. So we've kind of touched on it with the way our gaming is going now with kind of the crew games. So for me personally, pulling triggers is like the least important factor in airsoft at the moment.
Yeah, it's become less important for me as well over time, I think. Especially with these games we got involved in the last couple of years. It's not about stacking up body counts and kill counts and all that. It's about the experience, isn't it? It's about the ride you go on.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, very, very much, and certainly since I met you guys, it's much more about hanging out with my mates, and that's the really important bit for me. It's to me now. And I think it's probably things similar to people that go cycling, people that play golf and everything else. That actually it's more about spending quality time with your mates and having an excuse to do so. Not that you should have a need to do so. Is really valuable. It also probably means we drink a bit less, which is useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, actually, I'm going to be careful what I say there. I'm going to be careful about that. It's how many times have we gone to a game and thought, I've had enough fun today. Let's go and recap over a couple of cold pints in the beer garden.
Yeah. And, so we tend to leave. Every single skirmish game I've been to ever goes downhill pretty much kind of like at about 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
People just get tired and dehydrated and the shouting starts. So we generally just bail before that happens.
Yeah. 3 to 3:30, angry hour. People start throwing the toys out of the pram and gameplay goes down significantly. People lose it a little bit and it stops being fun. There's a couple of games I've even left in the past and we've sort of rallied round before the last game and said, look, we've all had a great day. I think a few people are getting a bit ragged over there on the other team or even on our team. Shall we just go out on a high instead of playing this last game and somebody getting upset and it turning into a row? And we left. Everybody's happy. Go and have that sort of post-game sort of digest. That's the coolest bit. That's the most enjoyable bit of the day. Or at least as enjoyable as the rest of the day was.
Yeah,
and then
the no shit there I was stories.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if it's people are like better at telling stories or something, but the whole advent of... Okay, so cards on the table. Me and Tom were going to talk about how social media has influenced Airsoft. And Tom suggested it, and I think we've talked about it in the past, but I thought, you know what? I think we'll be sort of flogging a dead horse with that. We know that it's been an influence on Airsoft. We've spoken about it a long time, and you can't help but kind of get a bit negative about it. And especially for us old farts, there's like a lot of negative impacts on the game. But cameras and things like that. I'm going to have to touch on the subject. Running around with GoPros and things like that is like, it takes a bit of the charm out of it. Like, people are much better at telling stories, and I honestly don't care if the stories are that true or not, or if they've been embellished a little bit, or somebody's used a little bit of artistic licensing to tell you a better story about how they shot 3 guys in the back or something like that. I don't know, it just seems better when people tell you the story rather than show you a GoPro footage on a tiny little screen. It's like, just tell me about how fun it was.
Yeah.
There's a point in time when me and Nick were playing at Bolby Woods, the Free Fire Zone, and we got stuck behind a log, and we were probably the last 2 guys alive on our team, or at least it felt like we were the last 2 guys alive on our team, and it felt like there were waves and waves and waves, like hundreds of enemies coming towards us, and we were shooting them, we were having fun, and they were taking their hits, and they were eventually going back to respawn and calling hit and stuff like that, and it felt fucking amazing. It was like the best thing ever. Like, Nick was even reloading BBs off the floor into his pistol mag so he could get a couple more shots off. Yes, that's one of those things that you have to say is a terrible thing that you can't do when you write in a magazine. But in that case, it was like, I don't really care if I jam the barrel up eventually. This is more fun than than not. This is going to be worth cleaning the barrel out later on.
Yeah,
It was brilliant, and I think if we'd have got GoPro footage of that, we would have been like, "Oh, that looks all right," but it doesn't actually do justice to what we were experiencing. And because we can tell that story, we can impart a little bit of our experience.
Yeah, I think what you miss is the personal, how you're feeling, how you perceive what's going on. I played a game. That last game I played was at West Midlands Airsoft, the FOB. And we were doing a village defence game, very, very basic, very standard village defence game with some lives. But to make it interesting for me, I took out I took out 5 30-round Marie recoil mags and a couple of mags for my Glock, because I wanted to have that Black Hawk Down moment. I wanted that Randy Last mag.
That's exactly what me and Nick said. That was one of the things me and Nick were talking about, is that like actually reloading and running out of ammo is fun. Okay, you're at a disadvantage and you're not going to be the most killingest player on the field, are you? But you're probably going to have a lot more excitement and a lot more fun experience, and that's kind of way better than just shooting loads of people.
Okay, Mostly Harmless in the comments has asked, do we think GoPro or first-person footage has translated to more people getting into the hobby, like due to big airsoft channels, Novorich, etc.?
Definitely, 100%. More exposure means more people. Do people get into it for the right thing? To make a compelling airsoft video, you actually often have to cut things a lot, and I don't disparage that. To make a compelling YouTube video, you have to do quite a lot of creative.
It's a skill to make. There's a lot of gameplay channels out there, and to make
it's why not everybody's Steven Spielberg. Making a compelling video is actually a lot more difficult than it looks, especially when half of your airsoft experience is kind of moping around, getting into the right position and things like that. That doesn't make compelling footage. I can't criticise that, but it does give people a slightly unrealistic expectation of what an airsoft game is going to entail. It is not going to be whistle goes, immediately start blasting people. They don't make that funny little clicking noise, and you don't get a cross in your vision whenever you hit anybody. That doesn't happen. And I think, to answer, yes, more people are involved. I don't want to say more people are involved for the wrong reasons. I think more people are probably involved for with different expectations. There are probably more people disappointed by what airsoft is now than there were previously.
Okay.
Because they saw it as something that it isn't.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean airsoft is shit. That means actually airsoft's a tactile, touchy-feely, emotional thing that you don't get through watching a YouTube video or through...
Okay, so that's a really interesting point, Ben. So what was it that drew you to airsoft in the first place?
My friend Dan Collister saying, after I'd been and played a paintball game and had a brilliant time playing paintball, and so I'm going to get into paintball. This was literally over a gaming table in our local games workshop one Saturday morning, because Dan still worked there at the time. I said I've been to paintball, and it was the best thing I've ever done on a Saturday. It was incredible, and he kind of said, I think you're probably ready to come and join in this airsoft thing with us now. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, imagine paintball, but like better. And Dan's obviously a collector as well. I mean, he's a fastidious modeler and painting models all the time, and loves that kind of stuff. So I actually really quite like paintball for what it is. That's not I actually quite like playing paintball. I'd be more than happy to go and play paintball if it's like a stag do or something like that. But Dan also enjoys the kind of modelling side of things and the collecting side of things, and he knows me pretty well, and he basically said, this is going to be the thing that you're going to get into. And yeah, lo and behold, I did. He predicted it and called it. And
so let's dig into that a bit, because it's interesting, and I'll give you my perspective in a minute. So was it the military? Did you have a lot of knowledge of kind of military loadouts before? Were you a gun nut before? Were you...
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, which is bizarre. I liked... I've never really been into that whole like Punisher side of things and that kind of black kit kind of stuff. But I kind of knew guns from action films. I was actually kind of the most recent technical kind of hobby that I've been into was cycling.
Yeah.
Much like yourself, and I really like bikes because I like how bikes are built. I like the engineering that goes into them. To save a couple of grams, there's a lot of engineering processes, and things are made as light as possible, as strong as possible, as rigid as possible, or as flexible as possible where they need to be. And I really like that. That really calls to me, and I like assembling bits of bike, and I like building that sort of mechanical objects. So getting involved in airsoft guns, I kind of quite like that technical aspect as well.
Yep.
And that's what got me going. And I like firearms because I like how firearms are built. The logistical side of building firearms is awesome to me. You know, how they're manufactured on the scale they are, why certain corners are cut. And I tuned in when you were doing the video with English Kiwi the other day, and we were talking about different breaches and different manufacturing processes on stuff. And that's a subject I really enjoy. Me and my granddad have spent ages looking at old books and things like that, and there's some really eye-opening stuff in there. And we were talking about the M16 and how the Americans had a shit time with that, and it's because it was initially accepted as a gun because it was supposedly self-cleaning and needed very little maintenance. But then the bean counters got hold of it, and they were like, that chrome coating barrel, you cannot have that, can't you? You can sacrifice that. And they said, well, yeah, the gun will still work with it, but you will need the cleaning kit. Nah, you said it doesn't need a cleaning kit. We haven't got a budget for cleaning kit. So, it's that kind of technical thing I find fascinating, like morbidly fascinating, and fascinating as well.
So I've had from childhood, lifelong not interest in kind of military objects. So I was never really interested in joining the military. I always had quite anti-authoritarian parents, so that was just never a thing. And I don't regret that, because with experience, there's no way I could have been a soldier anyway. But certainly objects. I remember going to see HMS Belfast on the Thames, and I went to Hendon Aircraft Museum, and I remember my mother telling me, how many thousands, millions of people these objects had killed, and I was well aware of that, but I just liked them as objects, and I like them the same way you did, in the same kind of, in terms of engineering and design and thought process and mechanisms. I ended up being a product design engineer as a career, so it was clearly something.
Must have left its impression.
Something in there somewhere, and because of that, I also really liked firearms. I remember as a kid, I had the World Book of Firearms as a kid that I used to go through.
I think I've got one over there, actually.
Yeah, I've got one. I'm looking at it right there. I went and bought it again recently. Which has got loads of really weird stuff in it, actually. And then, of course, my big interest in McCollum's Forgotten Weapons channel on YouTube. Hence, now I know what a flapper lock and a delayed blowback and all these terms you can throw around. But I just really like guns as objects. I'm not going to apologise.
Do you reckon this is why people end up leaving us sitting on the table alone in the pub? Is because we start talking about shit like this, and they're like, I'm just going to go away now. I'm just like slowly back away.
Well, that's how the YouTube channel started, right? Because I was, Gaj and me, going for a drink, and we were nerding off on World War II and Russian firearms, and our respective partners went, why the hell aren't you guys recording this?
Yeah.
Why don't you just nerd out and then send that out to people? So I think for me, and then so I like guns as objects. They're just really interesting, and I've always liked how humans interact with objects as well. So that's another really interesting thing.
The same with tactical kit. To be fair, the same with how tactical kit is developed and manufactured and things like that. That's one of the most fascinating things. The different materials that are thrown into it, and stuff like that. I know. Conrad pretty much doesn't use the internet or social media apart from sending dirty jokes on WhatsApp. But Conrad's one of the older guys that I've played with over the years. But Conrad's really, really into tactical kit. And he used to be like my go-to guy to get an opinion on a piece of kit. As a former soldier, he's got a good insight into it. He's a police officer. I think he's due to retire in the next few months. Maybe not, what with this all going on. But he's I think he probably doesn't play airsoft all that much these days, like a lot of us. But he's definitely all about the kit. I mean, he's got probably about 15 of the coolest first aid kits you've ever seen.
It's amazing what people really get into. It's like I've suddenly really got into like ARs between the 70s and the 90s. That's now my modelling. That's what I'm trying to. So we talked about. So yeah, I like playing airsoft. I quite like shooting people occasionally. What I really like, I know, and I've spoken to you about this. We've already touched it on the channel. What I really like now is modelling guns.
Yeah.
So I'm going to build. I'm going to build a Colt 727. I've just built a 653, and these are all, to most people, these are just M4s, right?
Oh,
which makes them want to throttle them, but yeah, it's just an M4. No.
Is that an M4A1? Somebody might get a bit edgy one day and be like, "Is that a CQBR?"
And you're like, and that's, and I've ranted in the past about calling everything, but to me that's what I really like. And then once I've built those things, I want to go and use them in the context for which which they were created, and just see what they're like. I just find it interesting.
I mean, some of the older setups, and everybody. One of the first things you can definitely see one of like the old heads that gets involved, and then they're like, "Why have you got all that shit strapped to your gun? You don't need any of that crap, do you? Take it all off. What a waste of time. Can't believe you spent all your money on that crap. Wrist rails, fuck that." And then they're running around with like a bone stock, like M4A1 kind of thing, or a 733 or something like that, iron sights in the works. And but they're definitely right. Like stripping things back sometimes is cool. Like that AK behind me, I've probably used that as much as anything else over recent times, and that is as basic as it comes. That's just a standard gun. And yeah, the purity of that and the functionality of that's great. It's not to say it isn't quite nice to have some doodads on it once in a while, and I do like a vertical foregrip and stuff like that. But yeah, keeping it pure. And a lot of those like older 90s, sort of 80s, 90s AR kind of weapons are very slick, aren't they? And they're very, you can see what the appeal was for that gun to start with.
There's a great video, if anyone's not seen it, with Larry Vickers talking to Ian from Forgotten Weapons about his... Larry was in Delta. Whatever.
His books are great as well.
Yeah, I got a few of them. So Larry was in Delta, or the unit, or CAG, or whatever. I think it was actually officially called Delta at the time. In the kind of the 80s, and he rebuilt his issue weapon, which was, I think it's a 723. And then talked about it, and it's really interesting. And the kind of the little, I really like that kind of make, do, and mend era. These days,
the Jubilee clip times.
Yeah. It's got a massive diving torch, Jubilee clipped to the underside of his gun,
torch
with
wrapped in a bit of inner tube with some zip ties around it to waterproof it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that sort of.
It's brilliant. With an IR filter, and then someone soldered on a thumb switch. And that's what the guys did back then. And now, the accessibility of kit now after the global war and terror and everything else is just phenomenal. And man, the stuff available to airsofters is phenomenal. But it's that kind of stuff really interests me. But that's really niche, and I get that. That's a really neat. That's a really So my airsoft effectively is building really obscure firearms that I can't buy from a commercial manufacturer, or riffs that I can't buy from a normal manufacturer, and then doing a little bit of living history. That's pretty. That's my thing now. And then really kind of. You should do.
I'm just looking at the comments.
Yeah.
And there's some crazy stuff going on. Crazy stuff.
What are you guys on about? Razor file. Then you should do an L119 A1 A2. I've never seen a good repo one in airsoft. You probably want to, Gaz.
Talk to Gaz.
Talk to Gaz in the comments. There are some very good repros in airsoft. You might not have seen one, but there's some very good stuff. Heyo do it. Absolutely incredible monolithic upper for the PTW that I can't afford, but I lust after quite seriously.
I think that's probably a subject we should touch on as well. Gaz did a really, really good job a few years ago now, getting the L119A2 rail to become a reality by contacting different people. Thanks to his line of work, got some great contacts, and it took him a little while, but they finally got a L119A2 rail made, which is a very specific piece of kit, really. And to get a company to put it together at the time was pretty much unheard of. However, the L119A2 has a monolithic upper, which means it's built into the upper receiver, which is there are airsoft guns featuring those around. But for it to exist, and there's kind of this A2 rail that mates to a receiver to get that kind of look was a great move. It's a very realistic thing to do, and it gives you the look and feel of the gun. But I've spoken to Gaz about it, and I've spoken to you about it, Tom, a few times. I really want an A2, but I think I need it to be right, and I need it to have the monolithic upper. But that does mean having a PTW, which almost makes me want to go and wash my hands just saying it. And they're so expensive.
I think you can modify them for GHKs, but which is something I'm going to touch on now, is I've started moving into gas guns. So this is my GHK M4A1. But purely because I'm not going to say realism, because I don't like the word realism. I prefer the word immersion. I don't like the word realism, but I think sometimes it can be misconstrued. Whereas immersion is a bit more understandable in terms of every time I want to pull the trigger now, I want that experience to be really exciting. I want a thud. I want the gun to. So I've got my Maria Recoil, which I really like. Obviously, this thing, which is going to turn into an L1. So people that don't know, an L119 A1 or an A2 is the gun that UKSF and various other units in the UK Army are currently using as their main service weapon. So obviously it's quite niche, but more popular. I'm still amazed no one makes one commercially.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
I'm amazed. They could call it a UK SAS gun, and I'm sure people would buy it. I do find it somewhat bizarre. But this GHK is going to turn into one eventually. I'm just kind of collecting the parts for it at the moment. But yeah, every time I pull the trigger, I want to be really immersed in it.
Have we got a 119 A2 or A1 image knocking around that we can display for Radiophile?
Of an airsoft one?
Yeah.
I will.
We can supply that public service.
If you keep talking, Ben.
Yeah, I'll
jump on the Heyo website.
Cool. I was just going through some of the comments that people have made, but Josh Hemingway, I think I met Josh up at Patrol Base a couple of months ago. He said, "Am I still rocking the Evo?" I am indeed. It's just over there, actually, probably about 10 foot to my left. Got a couple of them, but it's a great gun for. I don't know. We've been to the range a few times. I actually tend to use it more as a kind of target gun than I do as an impression gun. But I am definitely still rocking that one. Here else we've got. Wonder how many of us are ex-Games Workshop staff or players. From Martin Brodigan. I reckon this group of people that we're talking to, I would not be at all surprised if the percentage was about 50% of us are actively involved in Games Workshop hobbies. It might even be as much as 90%, I would have thought. Everybody kind of crawls out of the woodwork whenever you mention a Space Marine. And
okay, Ben, I've just dropped a picture of the Heyo PTW conversion kit on the stream, which you'll see in a minute.
I'll catch up with
so this is the L119A2.
There we go. That's all the bits and pieces.
So that's all the bits and pieces for a PTW to make a incredibly accurate L119A2.
Is it the LC Custom that does the custom machining? I mean, they've done some pretty advanced work, like machining the tiny little details, and I think they were even doing the properly engraved triggers, the Geisley triggers and things like that, had all the tiny little kind of stampings on them and things. So there's definitely...
Yeah, he's putting the G's on the triggers.
Yeah, there's definitely people making them out there. So, what else have we got in the comments here? Favourite firearms of all time, and why is it not a Mauser C96? Because it looks like arse.
It's just not a very good pistol, is it? What's my favourite? So what would be your favourite, Ben, if you had to pick one?
Oh, that's like saying what's your favourite band or what's your favourite album. It's really, really difficult, and there's a different situation and slightly different styles and things like that. I don't know. You'd probably have to break it down into favourite subgun, favourite pistol.
Okay,
favourite
let's do that.
rifle.
Let's do that then. Favourite subgun.
I'll probably get sacked if I don't say Evo. Honestly, actually no. I'm going to go MP9.
Okay.
The MP9 purely because I've got real world experience of firing one on full auto, and it's actually really, really cool. Angry little bastard that thing is.
So I've just chucked Gaz's L119A2 on screen. So there are some really nice. There are some really nice builds people have done out there. There are some terrible ones as well. But there are some really.
GMP had a pretty good go at a pretty terrible go at an A1, didn't they? You remember GMP's effort at an L119A1?
I'm still, as I say, I'm still amazed no one's made one. I'm sure there's an opportunity for someone to bang out even a half decent replica. I know there's loads of little details which are quite hard to get right, but I think anyway. So
a good starting point would be welcome.
My favourite subgun would be an MP5.
Classic.
And also, but
which one? Which one, Tom? Which one?
Probably a A3 with the sliding stock, but with a SEF group, with the safe economic fun trigger group.
Yeah.
I worked really hard on Modern Warfare to unlock the blueprint to get the SEF to get the SAF trigger group. Favorite assault rifle?
I'm gonna actually have to say either a 416 or an A2, a 119 A2, and they're purely going on about the feel of things. But then again, is there like a historic one that I prefer more? Probably. The G3 is really nice. SLR is really nice. Kind of iconic. AK is really cool.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It is. It's super tough. I don't think I can actually. If I'm using it for like how it feels to shoot, probably a 416 or the A2, or just how it feels to hold. That'd be cool. If I'm going for how cool it looks in pictures, okay, AK or maybe something a little bit older. It's really, really tough to choose.
I think battle rifle would be a FAL or a L1A1 SLR. Assault rifle, so intermediate caliber assault rifle. I really like the retro carbines. I'd struggle to pick the retro ARs. I'd struggle to pick between a 653 or a 723 or a 727, but all of those, I think a fixed carry handle carbine length AR for me would be. I just really like those.
I can't really.
If Marie, I
has just put any G3 except the one made by Jez.
Bit of an in joke there, guys, but our mate Jez, strong on Airsoft, has a bit of a reputation. He's popped up. A bit of reputation for building hideous HK conversions. Bit like Mark from Thin Brown Line, who pops up in my messages all the time, building absolutely hideous things that I want to go and strangle him every time he does it. But I think this is a really interesting point, isn't it? So going back to our kind of title, I really like firearms. And certainly being in Britain, I can't own these things and I can't shoot them. I suspect if I was in the States, I wouldn't be an airsofter.
Yeah. No. What place would it hold? So having a little bit of an insight into the industry and what airsoft, it certainly seems that airsoft is something that people do for a very brief period of time in the US. And I'm generalising here. I'm not saying this is the blanket rule that everybody abides by, but it certainly seems like people dip in for a summer, then the airsoft kit gets chucked in a cupboard and forgotten about whilst they discover making lifted trucks and running stuff over, or bought a real gun and started shotgunning things in their garden and things like that. So airsoft isn't as sort of a long-term thing. There's guys that really like airsoft in the UK that I've met that have been into it for a long time, and it is because it's a replacement for something that they would otherwise, or maybe have had in the past.
Yeah.
They've had their handgun in the past, they had their rifle in the past, and they can't have it anymore because of our laws.
Well, that's like the Action Air guys and the 3-gun syndicate. Whilst it's not strictly airsoft, controversial, airsoft in the UK being the acting out of law enforcement military scenarios for the purposes of recreation.
Yeah.
They can't have handguns anymore. And they can't have. You can have 2.2s, but it's really not the same. And they certainly can't have massively tactical shotguns. So it's an Action Air, particularly Action Air with the pistols. You just can't have those.
Mm-hmm.
And we know people that have trained on airsoft and have trained in a realistic manner using correct drills from day one, and have gone across to the States or Northern Ireland or Ireland and have competed and have done really well.
Yeah,
they've done a bit. With a bit of recoil management, they've done really well.
That guy that jumped on Plaid Daddy, Garen Thumb's channel. No, it wasn't. It was the guy that was with Lucas, that's in a cult. Lucas T-Rex Arms. That's it. Lucas Botkin, the Japanese guy that jumped on with him and then just started absolutely slaying. Was literally just able to hold an airsoft, a real gun, and adapt everything within the space of one mag. Was immediately incredibly comfortable shooting and doing really, really well. And that's just because he's pretty much just on point with holding guns, knows where everything is, knows how it works, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, Gaz has made a point that there is stuff I would miss. There is stuff, obviously, you can't go shooting at your mates in a training environment with real firearms. So there's absolutely a point. But I think...
You know what? Like, I've done... Sorry to interrupt, Tom.
Yeah, go for it.
I've done, like target shooting and sort of static drills with 2-2 and stuff. I don't know if Bill Thomas is around or anything like that, but me and Bill have shared a few experiences shooting things in a sort of dynamic environment, as dynamic as it can get. And it was great, really, really exciting. But after that, once you've shot paper a few times, there is really a good buzz from, especially in like a CQB environment for me. I mean, I don't mind playing woodland when the weather's nice, but for me, the CQB environment is where it really works best.
We don't have a range problem then. You don't have that.
No, you don't have that problem.
You don't have the people waving at each other from 60 metres away.
I also really just enjoy the intensity and the kind of... I'm just better at it. Maybe it's because I'm just shit at playing in woodland. I'm definitely better at playing in CQB.
I think I'm the other way around, but
no, I'm definitely better at playing. Not that I'm good. I just perhaps find it a little bit easier indoors. But yeah, nothing kind of can replace that feeling of actually trying to shoot somebody that's trying to shoot you as well. And I'm not coming at it from like a gun nut. I want them to die. I'm fantasizing about shooting them. But it's that sort of sporting thing that comes back into it. Yeah. Like, actually really quite enjoy this sort of facing off about each other.
So for me, there's two things. There's if I'm going to play airsoft in a kind of competitive way, I prefer being indoors in a CQB environment because that just removes all of that stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hang out with my mates, I'd rather be outdoors.
Yeah, I actually like Speedsoft. You know, that couple of rounds we played. Jesus, that's probably 2 years ago now, isn't it?
2018 Blaster Tour, yeah.
Damn. But that was really fun. That was great. Like, the guys that helped us out. Everybody gives Speedsoft this bad rap, and I know there's this, you know, coming at it from a protecting airsoft angle, it is a little bit on a fine line if it is actually airsoft in justification of riffs and things like that. But the act of playing in a confined space with a few people, fast and furious, it's actually fun. I really liked it, and I actually liked it how it's no bullshit. It's a test of your capability. You've got the ability to go and digest what you've just done over the last 10 minutes, learn, try it again, adapt what you did, learn. Probably one of the big problems about playing airsoft in big, long games, you never really get to repeat the same situation again, so you can never really learn anything new.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a training exercise in that sense. Like, training is repetition.
So in a sporting sense, you'd call that having a number of goes.
Yeah.
So the number of goes you have at an activity is very limited. So if you're doing I've been a triathlon coach in the past. So if you would practice, you know, a lot of people don't ever do their transition unless they're racing. And you get very limited. And when you're racing, you get very limited opportunities to do a transition. Whereas technically, you could do a transition every time you come back in from a bike ride. You could put your shoes on. That's what I used to do when I was racing, is I'd have my shoes by the door every single time, even when I came back from work, shoes on, bike down, shoes on, out, even if it's just the end of the road and back, just to practice, just to get that muscle memories. So yeah, a number of goes is really quite important. Yeah,
and you don't get to do that. So I know Gaz is just losing his shit in the chats now.
He says you're not allowed to wear your jacket anymore, Ben.
I would prefer it if it wasn't called Speedsoft, and it actually, I would like a high-speed tactical kind of thing to play, where you jump in and you've got 3 30-round mags or something like that, and you achieve the... When we played, it was really alien to us that people are just blasting BBs into a space that they expect somebody to come and occupy, and that's completely against any kind of rule of shooting. And I actually think probably the most detrimental thing to airsoft is high-capacity magazines. because it just encourages people to carry on shooting. I mean, I know people like shooting, and as somebody that sells a lot of BBs in their day-to-day job, I should really encourage people shooting as many BBs as
Drum mags
possible.
for everyone.
Yeah, everyone gets drum mags, high rate of fire, but the responsible me that actually cares about airsoft is shooting more BBs doesn't make it better.
Okay.
For BBs that actually go accurately. If you're going to run out of ammo, if you keep blasting, it solves all the problems.
Well,
you can have the highest rate of fire you want. If you're limited to, say, 30 or 40 rounds of magazine, you're going to have to use them sparingly. So you can't just blast off full autos. So I think that would make airsoft a load better.
Okay, let's dig into that, because that's an interesting subject, and actually kind of corresponds with my airsoft, let's call it a career, even though it's not. So when I started, mid caps were this is 2000, 2001. I had a G36, and I had one of those Murray mid caps with the little bullets on it, and I had a high cap, and I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and shooting a load of BBs off was really quite exciting. That was that was ace. And I had like 7 high caps, and G36 high caps were pretty good because you could run through them without having to wind. And I can't remember. Someone in the comments can remind me how many BBs you got in a G36 high cap.
7,000.
7,000. So I would pretty much fire off 7 mags worth of high caps per game, and shoot through 9,000 BBs a game day, and not actually hit anything. But and this is back in the time when you had the little Sanyo batteries that you had to change every time you changed the magazine as well.
Oh God.
But
I think I missed all that.
But that culture, you did miss all of that. That was not a good time. And I think that the culture at the time, Gaz may correct me, there really wasn't that much. 470, thanks, Gaz.
I think you'll find it was 470.
No, absolutely, no, brilliant. So I had 6, 7 of those. The amount of, but and I didn't know any. No, I don't understand. I also didn't know any better. But as I've come on, actually, I'm carrying. How many batteries did I carry down? I had about 6, literally, in my webbing. I had one of those Sav vests, and I had mags, and it was just full of mags and batteries. It was absolutely bonkers.
Hey, don't hate on Sav vests.
And then I had one of those battery slings.
Oh yeah.
With the big old.
Oh yeah, battery slings.
Battery sling.
I'm pretty sure Fire Support have still got a couple of those in stock.
What a live stream I want to do actually is retro airsoft, and I'll dig some images out and get someone from back at there to really dig into this stuff, because
you need to be sitting in like a wingback chair and by a fire.
I think some people would be utterly appalled. But I certainly, as I've got more and more into, particularly when you get into milsims, and milsims are a very flexible term anyway. But into more kind of immersive airsoft, and the more of the kind of more specialist stuff, you just shoot less, and actually it's still. I've not been at a game which hasn't been improved by ammo restrictions.
No,
and I enjoy reloading. I like, as Gaz said earlier, one of the most exciting things about airsoft is receiving fire and incoming fire. And if you can't put a constant barrage of BBs down, you're going to get more BBs coming back at you. It just makes life more interesting. I like reloading. I like my Mario recoil because it stops firing. Same with the Evo. It's
got the tactical thing, hasn't it? It's the tactile the thing. It stops shooting. You have to go through this process. Yeah, and the amount of times you actually forget that process as well. I
had to relearn to hit the button.
Stop.
So when I'm using an AEG AR now, I now remember I hit the bolt release every time, just because I'm using a gas gun, I'm using a recoil, and I'm starting to do it. And certainly with the more kind of live role, and let's be honest, the stuff we've been doing recently is basically live role play, but using airsoft rules.
Don't tell my mum that. She thinks I'm doing something that's really rough and tumble.
my mum's probably watching this. Hi, Mum.
Hello.
But yes, I certainly carry, and now the last game, as I said, the last game I went out with, I think I had five Marui recoil mags set to 30 BBs, and I was super careful about what I was shooting at. I think that kind of helps because my guns have got progressively better and progressively more accurate, and I know the range is better. My sights are zero. I'm using real optics, which you can zero more effectively, and spent enough time on the range, which is something we can probably dip into in a minute. Enough time on the range to understand how my BBs are flying, and I'm using much better BBs. When I started, you were using XL.2s.
Yeah, I mean they're decent BBs as a .2 goes, but
if you used 2.3s, you were really posh.
Oh, the elite boys.
And if you're really, really posh, you used SGM .29s.
Damn, 500 boxes.
Which I'm going to get a box of. I want to test them.
Yeah. Apparently the Marui Perfect Hits are about the same as those as well, but they're 0.28 gram. But what I was going to say was back when I mentioned earlier on about when I used to play a lot, like intensively, and that was because I had sites very, very close to me. It was very easy for me to go to games, and it wasn't costing me that much. But we did actually kind of rib each other if anybody wasn't using reel caps.
Okay.
Just within our group.
It's definitely changed.
Yeah, we were using reel caps as, like, if you're using anything more than a reel cap, we're going to take the piss out of you for the rest of the day. And any time you shoot somebody, it doesn't really count because you're using a full mid cap. We did run recoils, and one of the big pluses was recoils running 30 rounds and being able to feed all 30 rounds. That was a real big boon, and not many other guns could do that. And I did actually spend quite some time trying to work out how I could make a 200 round box mag for my 249 that I had a piece. Like, I wanted to make a 200 round mid cap for my 249 that I had, and it was I didn't ever actually make it. There was a lot of ideas in my head floating around, but
the new Mirai one will do about 200 BBs before it needs winding,
which is pretty cool. Yeah,
brilliant,
pretty cool.
Love it.
I mean, it's just I did have a LBT saw gunner rig. I think one of the 1961 T or something crazy. Gaz will probably be able to tell me exactly what one it was. But the saw gunner rig actually had pouches for 2 big box mags. So 600 rounds, one in the gun, 2 in the big pouches. That would have been a really cool loadout, and I could justify using the saw. That's one of the weirdest things about using high caps and things like that, is it stops you from having to use the proper kit with the gun that you're using, because you don't need to carry these magazines, especially with support guns as well. It's a problem. Yeah, so you end up just going out with a support gun, just like, oh, I haven't got any of the kit on. I don't feel involved in this. My immersion has gone down because I don't have the kit.
Yeah.
I've just got this big gun that rattles when I walk. That was really important to me, and that's why I still don't have a support weapon. It's because it doesn't offer the immersion. You don't have to carry the stuff around. You can't reload it. You don't have a belt and things like that.
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of what we're getting at again is immersion and feeling like you're in your own movie, or feeling like you're telling a story in your own head, which isn't slinging BBs at each other. And I'm sure that's us, and that's not what other people are trying to get out of Airsoft. I think for some of the younger players coming from multiplayer online games, multiplayer shooters. When I started, it was Counter-Strike. That was the height of it, and I think certainly COD and
not Pong.
Not Pong. No, I think we've gone beyond Pong. It's like throwing BBs across a room with a book.
That's Gaz, isn't it? That is Gaz.
And so that kind of mass multiplayer online shooter just didn't exist really, and that kind of, you needed a decent setup. I think now with old man beardy stuff coming on, but now with consoles, and it's all just much easier. And I think a lot of people coming in want to recreate, and so that's something we can talk about. I can talk about in another live stream as well. It's about it's about the influence of positive or negative of multiplayer, mass multiplayer online shooting games on Airsoft, and how that's changed.
I honestly think the net impact is positive overall. However, there's a lot of shit that you have to wade through sometimes now. The end result is overall positive. However, you do have to go through a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of that comes from just being a bit sort of intolerant over time. The older you get, the less time you've got for, stuff that you don't find immediately gratifying.
You also see it. You just see it. By the time you've seen it for the 17th time, you just get less tolerant. I think that's just one of the things. And certainly being in media and Airsoft, you just have to be a bit more accepting than
you have to just remember that.
Than personally you might actually feel. I get really wound up by it, but actually it doesn't. That's just me being a grumpy 43-year-old. It's not. It's
just watch that lad having a great time, and remember what that felt like, because it did feel like that for you at one point.
Yeah.
It was a massive buzz.
I don't. I wouldn't go onto an airsoft field with an ARP9 with a drum mag in a tracksuit, but that doesn't mean that's not legit. It doesn't mean he's not really enjoying himself. In fact, he's probably enjoying playing airsoft a lot more than I am, because I'm in a safe zone, smoking a fag, drinking coffee, talking to my mates. I'm not actually pulling a trigger. So you could argue.
Don't say that. Jo might be watching.
Oh, she knows. She knows.
The secret's out.
I have an automatic response to airsoft, and I need to start smoking.
It's an action film thing, isn't it?
Must be. I don't know.
It's an action film thing. You got to. Yeah, that was the gayest cigarette smoke I think I've ever done ever.
Okay, so we've been doing a bit of. We have done over the summer. Last summer we did quite a lot of range stuff at Thurleston. Just a bit of practical shooting, just generally running around and enjoying ourselves, and kind of using them on a more kind of on a one-way range rather than a two-way range. But that's been quite good fun for me recently, and I've almost got more out of that than I have done out of going to a skirmish, because I've been testing. And we touched on it earlier about a number of goes. How many goes do you get at a thing? And when you're on a one-way range or a flat range, you can do that drill again and again and again and again. And I've really been enjoying that recently.
I think we got a bit of because of our technical kind of inclinations, I think we got a lot out of it, because we were able to do this activity, and a lot of people seem to try and get into that activity at an airsoft game, and it's not the right atmosphere for it, because everybody else wants to run around shooting things, but what you actually want to do is spend some time shooting your gun and measuring it and finding out what it's like, because we're technically minded. And going to an airsoft game, there's no time for that. You know, you don't actually get that time to compare, to measure, to contrast different changes. You just don't get to try that out, do you? So going to a range was awesome, and it has been great, and it's really nice to have one close to us. I'm so looking forward to the weather getting warmer, so we can go and spend a couple of afternoons down there in the sun.
Yeah.
You know, maybe only shooting 150 BBs, but
each of those BBs matters, and you're testing something.
You're recording something,
and you know. Certainly, my shooting's got not that shit a lot, BB gun wise, but my shooting's got a lot better, and my measurement of range has got a lot better. My guns have got more accurate because I can measure it. I know what's going on. I know that 50, 60, 70 meters. I know what my guns can do.
You know what to expect as well.
Yeah, I know that, and then certainly having been a marshal, you know that most people's expectations are completely unrealistic. So that's been really good, and I'd recommend anyone who does, if you're in the Leicestershire region and you're anywhere near Thurleston Air Gun and Archery Centre, those guys have been brilliant to us.
And they give you no shit for having airsoft guns either. No. In fact, Rich is really supportive of airsoft, and there's valid space alongside to shoot your airsoft gun alongside the air gun guys. I felt really welcomed there, and I know we spoke about it in the past, but like, we're taking these fucking toy guns to this range and we're going to get ripped out by these guys, but they're actually more interested to see them than. Well,
the first time I went was when I got the Marui. We did the first range test on the Marui, actually one of the first proper range tests on the internet on the Marui recoil, which was a bit bizarre, but there you go. And I had a flat cap on and a shirt. Just
so you didn't feel too conspicuous.
Just so I didn't feel too conspicuous. And obviously now it's fine. But I think the more of that would also be really interesting, or even the more airsoft sites that could potentially put in a flat range bit of their site, and people people that want to could do it. I think that would be a fantastic thing to do. But the more sites.
How often do you halfway through a game get hit and then end up going back to the respawn point and finding 5-10 people there shooting a cam like 50 meters away or something, and they're totally distracted by that? Like, you could get back in the game, and they're like, oh yeah, we couldn't we? Oh, it's nearly lunch though, so people obviously do just enjoy shooting. And I guess that's why the whole VCRA thing and the defence process is all arse fucked, because it doesn't cater for people with a legitimate use. There is a sporting use for it, and shooting a can is a sporting use.
I guess that's another live stream as well. That's I guess they could argue that you then don't need a realistic imitation firearm to shoot a can, and they're probably right. But let's not go down that rabbit hole right now. But yes, I think there's I think there's an opportunity missed by airsofters in the UK in general on range use, where that would be really cool. I'd certainly as part of a game day or on a site. There's plenty of woodland sites that could spare that. The area at Thurliston that they use isn't
chrono area all the time.
Just put some targets up. It's not and have a proper measured range. I think even just putting in a measured range, so people have a realistic expectation of how far their guns.
In fairness, I have been to a few sites that have had a really, really good setup for that, and there has been. I mean, the first one I remember going to was probably the Grange over near Birmingham. I don't know where it is exactly. I can't remember, but it's the same people that run Bravo 1.
Yeah,
which is the indoor CQB thing. And the Grange is a really chilled out. They used to do this thing called the Airsoft Arms Fair, which is where I met quite a lot of people in the industry when we went with the magazine. They used to do this thing, Airsoft Arms Fair, everybody would turn up, but they used to let you do kind of walk on, walk off, really casual games. But they also had like a really nice chrono, like a sheltered chrono in range, or a sighting in range. And it was sheltered from the wind. It was measured out. It had consistent targets. Had a bench to shoot off of. And I remember I was supposed to be running the stand for a magazine at one time. I think I spent probably about 80% of the day just shooting different guns down this range because it was the first time I'd had access to it. But that was cool, yeah. And I think more sites should have that if that is available to them. Obviously, a lot of sites don't have it because they're kind of only part time as an airsoft site. They're not a permanent installation as an airsoft site. So we've got older players do it all the time at Anarchy. More social for the older players as they watch the young guys run around. It's you tend to gravitate towards the leaning at the bar, chrono and your gun kind of angle. We've done all this before. We've been running around. We've shot. I
certainly let the young uns run off these days.
Yeah.
Fine. Go and find them. Enthusiastic people.
Yeah, you go find them. I'll listen for the shouts and come and mop up afterwards.
It's one of those things. I think what's gone throughout this, Ben, is friendship.
Oh, totally.
And what's constantly come up is making friends and meeting people and having really important relationships. Potentially for the rest of your life, because it's one of those activities that you can potentially be under a lot of stress together, and that always forms bonds.
Yeah.
And difficult times,
my friendship with you aside, obviously we met playing airsoft, and we became friends, given a chance to talk about things. And if you only meet your friends on the airsoft field, you're probably going to want to talk to them more than you're going to go shooting with them. But I used to flippantly say back at Urban Assault and things like that when we used to play there, it's a good thing at airsoft you kind of get to shoot each other, and you perhaps don't know the other guys on the other, because if you do know the other guys on the other team, sometimes it makes you not really want to shoot them. So I don't really want to shoot him. It's my friend. This is this weird mental disconnect. I don't want to shoot him. So we used to go to Urban Assault a hell of a lot. The big group of us, Dan that was commenting earlier on, was one of the big proponents, and it got to the point where they wanted to divide us up as a group. There was a big gang of us, probably over 20, and we all wanted to play together. And they said, look, we're going to have to split you up because the other side's complaining that you guys are all doing this. Not that we're really, really good or anything, but I think they just got the impression that we were owning the site. We were the local team that had an advantage. And we probably did have an advantage because we played there a hell of a lot. You
know the site and you know each other, so communication's better and you know the site. So yeah, it's one of those. People often complain about local sites cheating or having an advantage, and they do.
Everyone was pissed. Nobody wanted to split up because we all wanted to play together as a team, and people were pissed about the idea of being split up, and it didn't really work very well. So we ended up playing together, and we carried on playing together. I remember one of the games we did get split up. I bumped into my friend Nick down one of the big corridors. If anybody had played at Urban Assault, the West Wing, a big old building to pretty much straight out of the safe zone when you go down. And me and Nick kind of ended up facing off against each other down the corridor in the West Wing, and Nick fired a couple of shots at me and hit the door frame about 2 inches to my right. I fired a couple of shots at him. We were like, is that you? Nick, is that you? Yeah, is that Ben? Yeah. Shall we go the other way? All right, see you in a bit. and we just like didn't want to play against each other because it was just weird. We probably should have played against each other because it would have probably made us better because we know we were playing on that same level at the time. Let's be honest, Nick was always a fucking demon, to be honest. He's the most unassuming guy, but he's a damn good shot, and just somehow manages to be in the right place at the right time. So yeah, airsoft's not all about just shooting, but somehow we've managed to spend a little bit of time talking about shooting.
I think what we in the title, I think what we meant was shooting each other, and it's shooting other people, and it's not, for me, it's very, as I said, it's in my personal hierarchy of airsoft needs. Shooting other players is, I can pretty much, I still quite enjoy it, but in the right context. And the gunman games we talked about the other day, really, I spent most of the time walking around with a stupid hat on, pretending to be some sort of commander. That
was a good hat. You were rocking that hat.
I'm gonna find a picture of the hat and put it up for everyone, because it was quite a remarkable hat.
It was I don't know, it looked like a bit of a stereotypical bad guy from an action film.
I think that was I was like the local army commander. It'll be around somewhere. Here we go. So for those of you on the stream, this was not going to come up.
It's going to pop up.
It will once I've sorted something out. There we go. So this is me with my tin mug and my extremely awesome hat. Just several sizes too small for me, but I loved it. It was great. I did get slightly screwed over by Josh, who went, "Yeah, you've done this before once. You can run."
Yeah. Oh God.
You can.
That was great.
You can run the entire bad guy side, but I really enjoyed it, and and I think for me, these events are what I really enjoy in airsoft now, which is, I think someone's already commented. Effectively, it's live role play. But really, what it was, Ben, and without blowing smoke up your ass, it was about spending time with my mates. In a fun context.
When we buggered off down to Sainsbury's and bought a load of hummus and had a sit outside the tent. I mean, that was probably the most relaxing. I mean, me and Jodie still talk about it pretty often. Jodie's my partner, fiance even, and we don't do conventional kind of holidaying that much and things like that. And Jodie used to be a paintball marshal, and she's got a good insight into it, and she loves the outdoors and getting away from TVs and screens and things like that. And we just had the most chilled out evening, didn't we? It was like everybody's just barbecuing, drinking warm cans of beer, and just sitting in the grass and sharing things. And I think, like, man, thinking about that now, it's just I hope this whole coronavirus thing fucks off pretty soon, because that socialising thing needs to come back. And I think as we get a little bit further down the line, we know we've probably got a couple of months of this at least ahead of us of not being able to do things like that. And I hope that we realise that that's the most important thing about the airsoft side of things is, finally we can go back to a game and I can see my friends, and I don't even really care about shooting people. Just want to hang out in the safe zone, and I want to get my kit on and go and talk to people, and I want to go around and say, oh, that's a really nice dump pouch, and oh, I like that radio you've got, and all that kind of crap. The stuff that we take for granted is probably the stuff that we actually really need.
I think for me, and it kind of almost goes back to Games Workshop, is it gives me a context in which to hang out with like-minded people. And I think and we kind of touched on it earlier, a lot of the people that are into airsoft are also have been or have dabbled with Games Workshop, and in a similar way, it gives you it's always very hard to meet people. Meeting people is really difficult, and becoming friends with people can be really difficult as well. But if you've got a common love or a common subject or something you're interested in, those initial conversations become so much easier. Oh, that's a cool gun. Oh, what's that webbing you're wearing? Oh, you're an idiot. You've got 300-pound cry trousers on. It just makes makes those initial conversations much easier, and then you obviously realise you've got stuff in common, which is often the basis for friendships and relationships, and that's the stuff that's really important to me.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I think Jodie's just been to the shop. She's refilled the fridge. Yeah, I've got about half a can left here, so we're doing well. We can keep live streaming for the sanity of everybody.
Has anyone got? Okay, so I think me and Ben have pretty much talked out. Has anyone got any?
Yeah.
Anyone got any questions in the comments for us both? Doesn't have to be about this subject, just about anything else. And then, so we'll give you a few seconds to type if you want to ask us a question, and then if not, we'll hang up, and me and Ben will probably hang out and drink some more beer together anyway.
I'll take.
So
Virtual pub.
virtual pub.
Let's agony ants. Let's be agony ants. Let's answer people's questions. What would you like us to answer?
They're all gone quiet. They've all gone shy now.
Yeah. Well, there's only 12 people watching now, so
Yeah, I must have bored them to tears already.
yeah. Oh no, it's going up again. Going up again. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's asked us about BBs or something like that.
Oh, I know far too much about BBs.
What's the best gun?
FAMAS and Beskanu.
It is. It's the mightiest Beskanu.
Okay, I think we're coming up for an hour and a half, so I will probably call it there. Thanks, guys, for watching. That's been awesome. Big thank you to Ben. Ben, if you hang around, we'll talk some shit.
Yeah, of course, mate. It's been my pleasure.
Shit after the stream. Been really good to have you on. I think the strong message here from both of us has been it's all about friendships and relationships.
Yeah.
Shooting people's cool, but what's really cool is going to the pub with them afterwards.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching. I'll end the stream and look out on Facebook, Instagram for the next live stream, which I'll make something up. All good.
Oh no, we've got a couple. We've got a few.
Quick.
We've got a few.
Right, let's answer Mark. They're here. Any tips?
When will ASG make the WW2 World War II Bren? Oh God, we've got a rampage of them. Probably never. I've got to be honest.
Okay. Shall I finish my Barrett 50 cal? Yes, Mark. Get on with it.
What is it? What Barrett 50 cal is it?
Oh, he's going to nerd off. Growing an awesome tactical beard like myself, Tom. Literally, Matt, I got to 40 before I could grow a full beard. So there is hope for everyone yet. Thanks, Gaz. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Nicholas. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
I'll finish off now.